So hey guys, this video is about it's like a beginner's video for somebody interested in sandblasting, and I've purchased the most inexpensive sandblasting cabinet and mounted it. I'm going to show you how you mount one of these ones, how you set them up, how you can use it as a do-it-yourself project, and I will also show you how it works in its simplest way to remove paint from metal objects.
Get it like this with the legs taken off. The legs actually screw in from the other side. Very, very simple. And there's some kind of tray here, and the gloves are already mounted. Comes in a package. Well, this case is from Germany, but you can easily find out that this originates from China. It comes with a lamp that you will have to mount inside yourself, and an electricity supply for the lamp, a blasting gun with nozzle that determines how much blasting media you're pushing out, and some hoses together with some clamping system as well. And I assume that this is the air supply. Well, and also included in this comes some sheets, and it seems that you are supposed to, well, you set them up here to protect your plexiglass window so that it doesn't become murky with time. And here is some air filtration, the inlet for your electricity, and then you just close it like this. So when you buy the cheapest blasting cabinet on the internet, you get everything from installation in terms of where you place it in your room and how you attach the air supply, and that you should not operate above 100 psi, and that you shouldn't use more than 10 pounds of abrasive media into the cabinet center of the cabinet. Excess amounts will create clouded cabinet conditions, and that all the joints should not be leaking. Some of them obvious, but 100 psi and not more than 10 pounds of abrasive media. That's like 5 kilos in Europe. When you buy these abrasive medias, they come in about 50 pounds, so that would be 1/5 of what you actually buy. Anyway, the rest of it is use, maintenance, and then we have here, this is what I mentioned before, the plastic sheets that are supposed to cover your window so that you don't blast your window opaque, and then a little section about troubleshooting. Apart from that, there's nothing more, and I will show you step by step how you do it. First thing is that you empty your entire cabinet, get everything out except from the gloves, because they are permanently installed in this one. Then you have your legs, they screw in on these 3 bolts. I put them on the reverse side with the nuts on the inside so that I can tighten them from the inside with a 10mm wrench, and it makes your cupboard much more sturdy. Another observation, which is maybe the most important one so far, is that if you put your hand inside here in the gloves, you will immediately find out that these Chinese blaster cabinets are meant for men and women with a hand size maximum 9. Mine is 8.5 to 9, but if I would have fingers that are 10 or 11, these ones would be very much too small. The next thing in the mounting procedure is to get the lamp in place, and the lamp actually is just to connect. And looking at these hinges or holders, it's actually surprisingly stable. We'll take a look at how much that light is when we close it. So you can see there's a reasonable amount of light coming in there, but when you put the light on inside, you will actually find out that there's a lot of scratches in your window when this cheap cabinet is, or how it's sold to you. And on this one there's actually a crack up here too. So, well, I guess you get what you pay for. Well, to be fair, it doesn't say anywhere, but it actually seems as those scratches that I just mentioned, well, There are only scratches in the polyethylene film that was almost invisible. So there's a polyethylene film sitting on the plexiglass window, and there's nothing. It's so fine so you won't see it unless you start rubbing your finger against the surface. Good to know if you want to have a perfectly transparent window to your blasting cabinet. The crack is still there though. I've also figured out what this ground outlet is for. This is for grounding your cabinet so that you avoid static electricity in the walls of your cabinet. This side of the air inlet shall be sitting on here, which is transferring to the outside of the cabinet. The entire gun goes inside here, and then this part comes into there. So we're just unscrewing this and then we tighten it from the outside. So the space you have to work with in here is not huge. So it's, I would say that the size of the parts that you're able to sandblast is about 25 centimeters. I said an A4 before, like a paper that's on the larger side. I'll estimate something like this. Well, I finally figured out what this one is for, and this is actually for picking up your media. So this one is attached to this part of your pickup tube for the sand. So it goes on like this, and for somebody completely new as me to this, you may wonder what it's used for. It functions, it actually sits down on the bottom of your sandblasting cabinet, and then when your media falls down by gravity towards your intake down here, well, to avoid that this intake is clogged, you have an extra tube on the outside, and this part is above your media. So that means in practice that when you have the air pressure on and you press the button, then it's going to create a suction up here in this hose, and if you create this suction from here, it's going to suck in so much media so potentially it can become clogged. But if you have or allow air to flow inside this tube but outside the inner tube, it's going to be a little bit of air sucked up at the same time as you are getting your sandblasting media into the inner tube. So it's going to form like a shield, allowing your sandblasting media to come up easier to your sandblasting gun. So we will just attach this one and put it down in the corner so it's reaching into the bottom. Now you want to create some space between this hose and this tubing so that you don't block the intake of air. And that's it. And then this one goes all the way down to the bottom. And from this construction it's just aimed to be lying there, and then you fill up your sandblasting media to a level so that you don't block this one. So we're now getting into one of the more complicated parts that needs a bit of attention when you install this, and that's how you attach your air supply. And when you unscrew this, you can see that this one has been modified a bit. I will go into more detail to this later on, but when you actually want to have a good air supply, you want it to be tight, because you don't want to have any whistling effects or any leakage of air in this installation. So the first thing I do here is that I wrap a little bit of Teflon tape around this one so that it becomes tight with regards to the threads. So here you can see that I wrapped 3 turns of Teflon tape around this thread, and now we're going to mount it straight out here, and then I'm attaching this unit on the outside. And the threads are actually okay on this cabinet, just needs a little bit of attention when you do this. Now this side actually comes with an inlet like this,
and I assume that they think that you are going to use some wider garden hose or something, but I have replaced this one with something that looks like this. And you can see it sitting there already, and I've also used 3 turns of Teflon tape to tighten up this connection. And this is a very useful investment. It's actually an airtight connection where you only thread in your hose into this hole. So I mounted this one over here, and to supply your cabinet with air I'm using these types of nylon hoses. These nylon hoses are very efficient, and as you can see I only need to push it in here and then it automatically locks and it's airtight. So spending a couple of dollars on getting this type of connectors is is worth the money. So you can now see how I can turn on the air supply, and there's no change in sound because all these fittings are airtight. And now you can see that my inline in-house air supply doesn't deliver very much, because this regulator is aimed for a high pressure bottle, but that doesn't really matter in this case, because you can see this is what's being delivered to my my sandblasting gun. And if I push this one now, you can see it's about 10 psi. And now if we turn this one, that's going to be about 20. And we keep on increasing the pressure, so that's about 60. And it's probably somewhere here you would like to start your sandblasting experiments. At this point everything is mounted as it should be, and now I'm just going to bring out the first blasting media I will show you, and we're going to test it on an outboard engine propeller. So we've got 2 types of blasting media here, and it's called sandblasting, but not all the sandblasting is done with sand as the abrasive media. And in this case we're looking at glass beads, and this is typically, it feels very soft. It's typically what you use when you want to remove paint sensitively from your parts without destroying the surface of the metal underneath. So you can actually sense that it's very soft. And if you're looking over here, we have aluminum oxide. It's a much harsher media. You feel it directly that it's going to be more abrasive. And this is also, both of these types that I'm showing you now are 1/5 of a millimeter, 0.2 millimeter in average dimensions of the grains. So we're going to stick and try this one today, and just to evaluate the cabinet itself. We filled up the cabinet now with about 5 pounds. It's a little bit on the upper side, but you can see how the pickup tube is located over here, and it's centered down here in the middle. So everything will basically fall down to the pickup tube on the bottom and go up to our sandblasting gun here. And as you can see, I've masked off some areas over here, and we're going to sandblast this edge here. We're going to try out the function of the cabinet. You can now see the result of using aluminum oxide as a sandblasting media within this cabinet that we just installed. And give you a close-up on this.
bring it out in proper light later on, but it's a very efficient way to remove paint. And I will now remove the masking tape. This is a pretty abrasive media I'm using, and but for further modifications of the sandblasting cabinet and a little bit of beginner's guide on selecting the best sandblasting media for your applications, just hit subscribe and you will see the upcoming videos on these topics. Take care, bye bye.